So when is the best time for you to eat carbohydrates? When should you be consuming food like this to get the most optimum approach to your health, your ability to burn body fat, your ability to build muscle, and actually live your best life? Now, I'm going to break this down for you exactly in this video so you've got a good idea of when you should be consuming these types of foods. What I want to start by saying is that carbs do not make you fat. This is a complete myth. And the reason why this has become more popular is because a lot of the bad processed foods contain a lot of carbs in them. So they've kind of been demonized for that exact reason. If you use carbs optimally and have the right strategy, they're going to help improve your training, improve performance, improve your overall energy levels, actually make you enjoy life as well. Because realistically, we don't want to cut foods like this out. Oats are nice, rice is nice. We want to actually include these foods in a nice balanced diet. So let's get straight into the video. In my opinion, the absolute best time you can consume carbohydrates is going to be around your workout window, what we like to call peri-workout. So this is either going to be pre-workout, intra-workout, or post-workout. Now, two most popular times out of these two, probably going to be pre-workout and post-workout. Probably would only really say you need to start consuming carbs intra-workout if either the workout is incredibly intense and you're training for like more than an hour and it's very glycotic, or you've got super high calories and you actually struggle to get that amount of carbs into your full day. So you think that having them in the middle of the workout could be a good time to actually utilize them a little bit more. They're the only real reasons why I have carbs intra-workout. So let's get on to the first time to have them, which is going to be pre-workout. Now, the reason why carbs are going to be so effective pre-workout is because our body's number one fuel source is glycogen. What's glycogen? This is what carbs get broken down into in our body once we consume them. So we actually want to be giving our body the preferred energy source so that it can perform at its very best. This is why keto isn't always the best approach, because our body's preferred energy source isn't ketones, it's glycogen. So we actually want to include carbs in our diet so we can perform our absolute best. So we have them pre-workout so we can fill our body full of glycogen. We can actually start to increase our energy levels so we can train and perform very, very, very well. Now, when we have low glycogen and we go into a workout, unless our body is keto adapted, we are going to train terribly. We're going to have no energy. We're going to have terrible performance and we're not going to be able to lift heavy. So pre-workout to get them in is a very important time to have them. Now, I personally have things like oats pre-workout at the moment. This works really well for me. I have a carb source that sits on me very well. I don't get bloated. I have a nice energy supply that stays with me. But something like jasmine rice, again, is a good thing to have pre-workout. You could have like some sweet potato. You could even have some wraps or even something like a bagel is going to do no harm to have as a pre-workout snack when it comes to that workout. Or you can also get some fruit in as well. I personally have some blueberries with my pre-workout porridge, and again we're just getting in more of a quicker energy source in there too with that fructose from having the more sugary based carbohydrate. Now, another reason why it's so important for us to be able to actually have carbs in a pre-workout is because essentially we want to drive insulin before we train. Insulin is one of those anabolic hormones when it comes to building muscle. Now, this is probably the only time where we want to trigger in insulin levels, because if we trigger insulin levels any other time, then actually this is going to slow down the fat burning process, which we don't really want if that's our goal. But when we're trying to train, that's different. We actually want to spike insulin so we can get the most out of that workout when it comes to building muscle. So that's another reason why pre-workout carbohydrates can work incredibly well. Now, on to post-workout. Now, we want to have them post-workout for kind of similar reasons when it comes to actually performing and recovering at our best. Now, when we train hard and we lift weights pretty maximally, or we do a very intense cardio workout, we burn through our glycogen stores. So effectively, some of the carbs that we would have consumed pre-workout, our body would have utilized during the training sessions. So what do we want to do? We want to replenish those stores, and we actually want to get glycogen back into our muscles again that might have been lost during the training session. So post-workout is another fantastic time to have carb sources. So you can have oats post-workout. Again, you can have some rice post-workout. I actually have sourdough bread post-workout at the moment with some eggs on it, which is an incredibly nice meal. I actually love bread and love toast. So to bring this back in my diet now in a performance phase is working incredibly well. But post-workout carbs are a great time. We actually recommend to some of our clients they have cereal post-workout, because cereal is not really a great carb source to have anyway. But if you enjoy a bowl of Cocoa Pops or something, having it post-workout is probably going to be the best time. Get a quick release of carbs and actually improve again, increasing those glycogen stores post-workout. This is a good time to start getting maybe more of your kind of processed foods in. You also get some fruit in there again and actually utilize that post-workout window really effectively with a good protein source as well that you can get hold of. Now, this is a good time. And again, if we actually spike those insulin levels post-workout, this is again the kind of response that we want to actually increase our body's ability to be able to build muscle. So that is another great time to have carbohydrates. You have pre-workout and you have post-workout. Another good time that I think, again, to have carbohydrates, actually going to be in the evening meal. Now, this is probably against what everyone thinks, because everyone used to think that actually having carbs after 6 p.m. is going to make you gain weight and make you get fat. This is absolute BS and is not the case whatsoever. I actually think carbs at the end of the day probably better than having carbs any other time of the day, like in the morning. The carbs before you go to bed or in the evening time, maybe around that kind of 6-7 o'clock when you're having your dinner, can work really well. And this is why. When we have carbohydrates in a meal, again, it will spike our insulin levels so that actually after we've had that quite carb heavy meal, we might start to feel a little bit sluggish. We might start to get our energy levels impacted a little bit. We might start to feel a bit tired. All know when we have a carb meal, sometimes we start to feel a little bit sluggish and we start to drop a little bit. Now, we don't really want this, apart if it's around the workout, it's different. We don't really want this in the day, but when do we want this? In the evening time, because why? We're probably going to try and sleep and relax and get into a nice de-stressed state. So if we drop insulin levels at that time and we start to get a little bit more relaxed, we're actually going to improve our sleep quality. Now, I know that when I have my jasmine rice in the evening, normally I have this with like some chicken or some steak. After I've had that meal, I actually start to feel a little bit more relaxed. I'm not really doing any work around that time anyway. I have the odd call, which isn't ideal if I'm feeling a bit sleepy, but I can still kind of persevere. But most of the time after I've had this last meal, I'm pretty relaxed for the evening. I'm not doing anything and it massively helps me sleep. So if you struggle with sleep, try introducing more carbs in your evening meal, because this is going to help you when it comes to feeling a bit sleepier, dropping your insulin levels very slightly. And it's a good time when you don't need to be as switched on and as focused and as cognitively sharp is what you might need to be during the daytime. So they're the best times in my opinion. Now I'm going to run you through what I believe to be the worst times to consume carbohydrates that is actually not going to be very beneficial. Now, I think personally the worst time is going to be in your first meal of the day. Now, again, this is going to be dependent on the person. So if you train first thing, that's different, as you might be using it as a post-workout meal. But if you don't and you have a really carb heavy meal and you train like later in the day, don't think this is a good idea, because you're actually just going to spike your insulin levels first thing in the morning, which means you're going to start to feel crap later in the day. Like after just maybe 1 to 2 hours, those insulin levels are going to drop and you're going to hit a slump like in the morning, like 11 o'clock. And what are you going to do? Try and drink a coffee to get those energy levels back up. All coffee does is it just tricks our body into thinking it's got energy by blocking our adenosine receptors and actually not solving the problem of trying to create more energy. It's essentially blocking it and borrowing energy so that when that coffee wears off, you feel even worse. You have to have another coffee to try and blunt it. Now, this is what most people end up doing. They have a carb heavy meal in the morning. They drink coffee throughout the day to try and make sure they're keeping energy levels high. And this is the absolute recipe for disaster. They wonder where they feel like absolute shit and have no energy ever. So we don't want to have that sugary cereal in the morning. We don't want to have the toast and jam first thing if we can help it. We actually want to go for a high protein, high fat meal. And this is going to make you feel way better, like cognitively, you're going to be way sharper. Eggs, some avocado, some like Greek yogurt or something like that. That's a much better option for maintaining high energy levels throughout the day. So that's what we want to try and focus on. And if you are going to have a carb source in the morning and you are going to have something like that, then just try and get some protein in there as well and some fat sources, because at least then you're going to get more full from the protein, and a fat is going to help slow down that digestion slightly and actually bring insulin levels down a little bit and keep a bit more of a sustained energy source. And again, it's the same with that lunchtime meal as well. You don't want to go for a super high carb meal at lunch, which has got low protein and low fat, because again, you're spiking energy levels and spiking insulin super high so that it just drops. And that's why people get always inherently tired around 3-4 p.m. because they've just had like sandwiches or like a wrap or like a meal deal for lunch, which has been super high in carbs, got no nutrients in it, and they just crash at like 3-4 p.m. and feel awful. They've got no energy and they can't train. This is what happens to a lot of people. You need to avoid that by choosing the right meals when it comes to your breakfast and your lunch. Super important. I even recommend to people, if they can't get a good breakfast on board and they don't train till later, to just fast. Fasting and keeping your body in a lower insulin state and using caffeine throughout the morning is a much better option for being able to perform at your best cognitively than actually smashing poor quality processed carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates that aren't good for your body. So they are not good time to consume carbs. So as always, guys, I hope you found this video useful. That is my kind of input in terms of when carbs can be effective. You can start being a bit more strategic. If you're a bit more advanced, you can start looking at a potential carb cycling approach, which essentially means you get even more out of your carbohydrates by using them tactically around the days that you train, your rest days, your bigger workouts. This carb cycling approach can go quite well. And I actually recorded a video on this exact topic of carb cycling, and you can go and watch that exact video if you click here, and that's going to show you how to use carb cycling effectively when it comes to fat loss and building muscle. So as always, hope you find this video useful. Make sure you smash the like button. Please make sure you subscribe for future videos, and I'll catch you in the next one.